KTSM 9 News Today starts right now.
Well, good morning, Borderland. Today happens to be Friday, September 1st. I'm Trevor Thompson. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us this morning here on KTSM 9 News Today. It is a brand new month, but as always, we have plenty of local news to talk about. Grand jury has decided not to indict the rapper Travis Scott in connection with the Astroworld tragedy. The grand jury also deciding not to indict others associated with the same festival. All right, Stephanie, so it seems that Crucius is at least slightly more responsive today than yesterday, although really not showing much emotion still. Is that fair to say?
And I'm Trevor Thompson. Natasha, we are bundled up and warm, but
yes.
I saw one of our photographers out there, Ruben, has shorts on.
He always has shorts on, though.
Mad props to him, though. But joining us up here is Bernie Olivas, Executive Director for the Sunbolt Association. So glad to have you with us, and so glad to be out here live with a live crowd after last year. Of course, it was a virtual parade.
You are playing the role of Alexander Hamilton.
That's the guy.
Created by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
That's also the guy.
Did you watch his performance, study him? How much are you taking from him? How much is your own creation?
A fool would try to study Lin-Manuel as Hamilton.
Yes, Stephanie, it's been a ton of fun out here in Canutillo at the Animal Rescue League. The fun thing about volunteer, yes, it is hard work sometimes, but it can also be a fun family event. I brought the whole family out here. You might recognize some of these folks. My lovely fiance, Natasha Paloma, our beautiful daughter, Natalia, and Nathan's back here playing with the cats. If I had to make a New Year's resolution this year, I guess it would just be to live more deliberately, do something special each and every day to make it memorable. People always warn me, they say, Trevor, the older you get, the faster the time is going to go. I didn't really believe them, but I'm starting to believe them now, so I'm just going to try to make each and every day as memorable as possible. So that's mine. And police also tell us a man was arrested yesterday with a loaded rifle at the Cincinnati Entertainment District. Investigators telling us that 22-year-old Andres Gabriel Lodoza was carrying a rifle while approaching a large crowd at the Champagne Villain Bar on Cincinnati Avenue. 150th anniversary of El Paso officially becoming a municipality.
The sesquicentennial.
There you go.
Sesquicentennial.
I've been practicing that word all summer long. I think I finally got it now. Really large number of El Paso police officers and people from other departments wanting to pay their final respects to Chief Greg Allen. We also saw a similar thing earlier in the day over at the church for the funeral services taking place in the Lower Valley. The number of people streaming into that service was simply remarkable. Only 27%, Stephanie. Now we're even learning some of their names, but questions are growing about the emergency response. Miguel Almaguer was granted rare access inside the burn zone with search teams. Take a look. We're back now and switching over to presidential politics. It was a very busy weekend on the campaign trail with President Biden hosting his first 2024 rally, and also some Republican candidates escalating their criticism of the current GOP frontrunner. That's, of course, former President Donald Trump. Our top story this morning, we have an update for you on the trial of the man accused of killing a Southwest Airlines employee. Bernard Chrisman has now been found guilty of murder.
KTSM 9 News at noon starts right now.
Well, two people were taken to the hospital this morning after a stabbing in central El Paso. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on KTSM 9 News at noon. I'm Trevor Thompson. And a man was arrested after Texas DPS seized over 20,000 dosage units of LSD along with other drugs at his home last Friday. DPS now says that 44-year-old Jamil Nichols was involved in distributing the drugs to local residents, including active duty soldiers at Fort Bliss. DPS, along with the DEA, executing a search warrant at Nichols' residence after a 6-month-long investigation. Authorities say on top of dealing those drugs, he was also dealing cocaine and fentanyl. He was booked into the county jail. And a story a lot of people are talking about now, a mysterious mountain of clothing was dumped in a parking lot near Vinton. Take a look at this video. It shows the towering pile of clothing. What we do know is that the mess was illegally dumped into the parking lot of a building that was actually shut down years ago. The weird part is no one knows how it all got there. People have been seen combing through the pile, taking home a few items here and there. One inspector with El Paso County telling us the situation is still under investigation, and they are working with the building owners in the hopes of finally resolving that issue. And a story that is happening right now. In fact, some El Paso residents remain without power after last night's storm. Take a look at this map here showing the power outages currently across town. The purple dot, that's what we really want to focus on right now. It says more than 100 EP Electric customers are without power. Meanwhile, the green dots symbolize anywhere from 1 to 49 customers without power.
And come September 1st, TxDOT will be able to actively change the speed limit due to weather or construction.
Stephanie, of course, all this comes after a law was passed giving TxDOT the authority to change speed limits all across the state. Our KTSM 9 news reporter Shelby Capp explains how El Pasoans will be notified, though, whenever the speed limit does change. Moving over to a health alert now, the FDA has just approved a new tool in the fight against RSV. The Pfizer vaccine is the very first given to pregnant women. It's to protect their babies from the dangerous respiratory virus, at least for the first 6 months. Gwen Marizuko was one of 7,000 pregnant women involved in the study. She says she still doesn't know if she was given the vaccine or a placebo, but says her now 20-month-old is doing quite well. And doctors also say they are hopeful about new COVID boosters expected to be authorized soon as the country sees a slight uptick in cases. Now Americans of all ages are being encouraged to roll up their sleeves for these potential new tools against a possible triple-demic. Over the past few years, there has been a concerted effort to rename places that honored Confederate leaders. Here in the borderland, places and objects named for people such as General Robert E. Lee or even Confederate President Jefferson Davis have been renamed or removed entirely. But there's one Confederate leader whose name can still be found around Las Cruces. It's a peaceful Friday in the town of Mesilla. But here, 161 years ago, violence ruled during the Civil War. The Confederacy, led by Lieutenant Colonel John Robert Baylor, won a victory nearby, capturing hundreds of Union soldiers after they ran low on water trying to escape, according to NMSU history professor Dr. Jamie Bronstein.
The Union troops should have gone north, and instead they went east, and I'm not quite sure why. Baylor's troops really didn't even have to do anything. They just had to, get up in front of the Union troops and allow them to surrender.
In the quaint and peaceful plaza of Old Town Mesilla, there lies a marker that commemorates Baylor's activities early on in the Civil War. It is very small and not always easy to find unless you know exactly where to look. This marker, which praises Baylor's, quote, dashing actions, was put up in 1964 by a group called the Sons of Confederate Veterans.
And you might not think that New Mexico would have like a substantial presence of Confederate supporters into the 20th century, but actually they did.
But there are some other reminders of Baylor's legacy in the region that are much, much larger. In fact, they're just about as big as anything around. Today, cars whiz in and out of the parking lot of the Baylor Canyon Pass hiking trail, which is on Baylor Canyon Road, which sits under Baylor Peak, a spot sacred to many Native Americans, including Diego Medina, who represents the Piro Manso Tiwa tribe.
And it's unfortunate, but it's not going to be like this forever, right?
Now, not only was Baylor a Confederate leader, but he held a deep hatred for Native Americans virtually his entire life.
I don't think most people are familiar with Baylor and the worst parts of his career. He also served as an editor on a newspaper called The White Man, where he just basically reported about Indian attacks and had bad things to say about Native Americans.
Baylor even wrote a letter to another commander urging him to create a fake peace gathering in the hopes of luring in Apaches to, quote, kill all of the grown Indians.
He was a bad person, and he'll be recorded in history as such, but our landscape doesn't have to, and our landscape was not born to be named after him.
But the fight to remove Baylor's name from this land has been a rocky climb.
I think overall in Las Cruces, there's a real lack of historical awareness.
But changing names is nothing new in the borderland, especially when it comes to Confederate leaders. The Southern Poverty Law Center tracks such places. In fact, in recent years in El Paso, Robert E. Lee Road has been renamed. So too was Robert E. Lee Elementary School. And just west of Las Cruces, multiple markers declaring I-10 as Jefferson Davis Highway have also been removed. The one name that remains is Baylor.
Yeah, certainly I had no idea that that was a part of this history, right? And, you know, you learn it in bits and pieces here and there.
Patrick Nolan is the executive director of an advocacy group called Friends of the Organ Mountains and a proponent of removing Baylor's name.
So you're optimistic about the chances that this can get done in the near future, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. I am very optimistic. I think it's a no-brainer. I think we'll take care of it. These things take time, though, right?
And there is reason for his optimism. The Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, is from New Mexico and is the first Native American to ever hold that position. She issued Secretarial Order 3405 to order reviews and possible changes to derogatory geographical and federal land unit names. That's handled by something called the Board on Geographic Names, but there are hundreds of places across the nation to review, and so far Baylor's name remains as the process plays out.
I would put that at 2 to 3 years, probably, right? It's got to go through the process, and that process takes long.
But one day, Medina hopes this land and this peak will have a new name, something to honor the thousands of years of history that existed well before the American Civil War.
You know, what we're looking at behind us is Waivonae, which is like the place where the sun rises.
He's hoping to honor the rising sun while watching the sun set on a dark chapter in the history of New Mexico. As I mentioned, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, that marker in Old Town Mesilla was put up by a group called the Sons of Confederate Veterans. They do still exist today. Their website says the group neither embraces nor espouses acts or ideologies of racial and religious bigotry. We did try reaching out to their national organization for comment, but did not hear back in time for this story. In studio, I'm Trevor Thompson, KTSM 9 News.
We're back with today's Borderland Spotlight, and we're highlighting someone who might have something to teach us all. We're talking about a local woman who was born in 1913 who just turned 109 years old.
1913, by the way, that's actually the year that UTEP was founded. Back then it was not called UTEP even. Born in Chihuahua in 1913, she moved to El Paso in 1916 and has been here ever since, and definitely you could say has seen it all. Grandma in this case is 109-year-old Santos Fierro. Playing there with one of her great-great-grandsons, one of, well, many grandkids.
If you ask me how many grandchildren and great, I couldn't tell you. I have so many.
But family is her life, and what a life it's been. Over a century spent seeing the changes across El Paso. She's been through 2 global pandemics, 2 world wars, but she says it's the Great Depression that really left a lasting mark.
It was pretty hard, you know. We used to get stamps to get groceries. And we did get them, but no, it was pretty hard.
Fierro lived for a long time in Smelter Town, essentially a company town for workers, at the old Asarco copper smelter, and their families, of course. And though Asarco has since been shut down and relegated to the history books, Santos is still going strong for a variety of reasons.
First, I give thanks to God. Second, I praise my big family, because that's what kept me going, my family.
She was married to her husband for 27 years until he passed. That was a few decades ago, but she's always had plenty of family around, always making them her favorite dish.
What is your favorite that you always like to make? Look at Trevor. Look at Trevor.
Fried chicken.
Fried chicken.
And the more El Paso changes, the more Santos stays the same through fried chicken, faith, and family.
If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here, I don't think.
Aw, I absolutely love that story.
Okay, so I did ask her if anybody else in the family lived to be over 100. She said at least one person she knows of, her mom lived to be 104 years old.
Wow, they live long, and she's very alert, as you guys just saw there. She probably keeps eating her fried chicken. What other secret did she give you for living such a long, healthy life?
Oh, it was just those three things: faith, family, fried chicken. That's the key.
That's perfect.
That's
you know, they all have some sort of something that they say has been the secret to keep them living for so long. But happy birthday to her, 109. She may just be one of the oldest El Pasoans, I think.
In all likelihood, yeah. Maybe the oldest, possibly. Hard to verify that. They went to Carino's for her 109th birthday. They say they're planning something spectacular for 110 next year.
Hopefully we're invited.
We should be, right?
Mariachis and everything there. Well, happy birthday to her.